Let's jump right into this explainer, guys, because I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're diving into something so incredibly relatable, you've probably experienced it, well, literally in the last 24 hours. You know the drill. You type out a text, hit send, and then you just kind of wait. Today, we're unpacking the psychology of the unanswered message. We're going to figure out exactly what happens inside our brains when communication just abruptly stops, and why something as simple as a completely blank screen can feel honestly overwhelmingly loud.
Seriously, think about that exact moment for a second. What actually happens when you press send but get absolutely nothing back? You watch that little bubble pop up, delivered. Maybe it even says read. And then? The minutes just start ticking by. Tick, tock. The screen goes dark. Your phone is just sitting there on the table, totally motionless. You check your volume, you check your Wi-Fi, right? But nope, no technical glitch. It's just silence. Why does that specific brand of silence feel so heavy? Why does it grab our attention so aggressively?
Okay, let's dive right into this with Section 1, the unanswered message, the anatomy of silence. So, to really wrap our heads around the psychology here, we have to look closely at the core incident. There's this massive contrast going on. On one side, you've got the physical reality. Literally, what's happening in the real world? Well, you're just staring at a piece of glass and metal. It's a totally blank screen, the literal absence of an event. No sound, no movement, nothing. But on the flip side, you have the psychological reality. And oh boy, over there, it's an absolute beehive of activity. You've got anxiety, overthinking, and this rapid-fire generation of worst-case scenarios. Like, did I say something weird? Are they mad at me? Did something terrible happen? The physical reality is a flat 0, but the psychological reality is dialed all the way up to an 11. Your brain is just working overtime trying to fill in that blank space. And as time passes, that contrast only escalates. Let's look at the anatomy of this waiting game. At 0 minutes, right at the start, we have the send. You get that tiny hit of dopamine. You've initiated a social connection, so you're feeling good, maybe a little excited. But then, we hit the 10-minute mark. The wait. This is where doubt just kind of starts creeping in. You casually glance at your phone, maybe justify it like, oh, they're probably just in the shower, or maybe driving, no biggie. But then, we hit 1 hour later, the anxiety peak. Those easy justifications start to fall apart. The actual passage of time directly escalates your anxiety level. Time itself literally becomes the yardstick your brain uses to measure rejection.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the science of silence, an analytical view.
When we usually think of silence, we picture a quiet room, right? Just the absence of noise. But in a digital context, well, it's a completely different story. Digital silence is not a void. As our source material points out, it's actually an active psychological trigger. It's not just empty space. It's perceived as a profound, active withholding of information. Your brain doesn't just say, oh, nothing is happening. No, your brain screams, an expected response is missing. And for a highly social species like us humans, a missing response is a massive red flag. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what the text outlines, the science of silence, and why unanswered messages cause anxiety. The source explicitly links these two things together. Silence literally equals anxiety. Because in our text-based world, a lack of communication is actually a form of communication. When someone doesn't answer, they're sending a message that they aren't answering. The brain detects this science of silence and frantically searches for the why. And since our brains absolutely despise uncertainty, they usually default to the most negative why possible, just to protect us.
So let's unpack exactly how this happens in Section 3, triggers of texting anxiety, cognitive escalation.
The absolutely crucial point here is this cognitive escalation. Think of it in steps. Step 1, the unanswered message actually happens. The stimulus, or actually scratch that, the lack of stimulus occurs. Step 2, your brain registers the silence. It actively flags this non-communication as an anomaly. It's basically saying, hey, the pattern is broken. And then step 3, anxiety is triggered. But why? Because historically, like evolutionarily speaking, being disconnected from the group or ignored by a social partner meant literal danger. Your brain is processing this modern, digital non-communication as an actual social threat. The anxiety isn't some weird glitch. It's your brain's alarm system working exactly as it was designed to, just, in a totally modern digital setting.
I actually want to take a second here just to normalize this for all of us. If you feel a knot in your stomach when someone leaves you on read, it doesn't mean you're overly needy or somehow uniquely insecure. Not at all. The anxiety you're feeling is rooted in deeply documented psychological science. You are literally fighting against evolutionary biology that desperately wants you to stay socially connected. Your brain is honestly just doing its job to keep you safe in your social environment.
Which brings us to our final takeaway. Now that we understand the mechanics of this whole thing, the timeline of the weight, the wild difference between physical and psychological reality, and that step-by-step cognitive escalation, I really want you to ask yourself, how does your own brain react to the science of digital silence? The very next time you press send and get absolutely nothing back, are you going to let the anxiety peak at that 1 hour mark? Or will you recognize the silence for exactly what it is, just a temporary blank screen, and finally give your brain a well-deserved break? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to decode the fascinating stuff that shapes our world.